Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing. Hi guys, welcome to the 99th episode of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. So, you know what that means? Yeah, the 100th episode is next. I can't believe it. I can't even believe it myself. But I have a super duper surprise for you guys. I mean, I even have trouble believing it myself. But for now, let's not focus on 100 just yet. Let's bask in the sun of episode 99. It's special too. But do remember to listen to my 100th episode. You're not even going to believe who I have on. It is going to be spectacular. All right, so I've been traveling a little lately, and people are just so interesting. Like, don't you think so? I met my friend Teresa in Atlanta for Atlanta's Mart market. And COVID obviously has changed our world in so many ways, and it's never more obvious than when I travel. And I know some of you out there listening wouldn't even dream of traveling because you don't feel like it's safe right now. And some of you are like me and you're not afraid to travel, whichever is fine. But I've personally known several people who've had COVID and wouldn't have even known they had it except for they chose to get tested because they were around somebody that was positive. I've also known people secondhand, maybe 2 or 3 people that have been relatively healthy as far as everyone knew, but they had a really tough time with COVID, which some of them had to be hospitalized. I even heard this last week from a friend whose mother died from COVID. So the cases vary greatly, and it's pretty confounding. I think probably everyone feels that way. I mean, but why does it ravage one person and not the other? I don't know. One thing that I think that has changed, I mean, because of COVID, things are changing so much. And one thing I think that has changed greatly is how quickly the public has adapted to wearing masks. It's crazy, right? I mean, we're wearing masks almost exclusively anywhere you go in public, whether you're sick or not. When you're traveling, especially like airport, airplane, hotel, Uber, you wear it 100% of the time. Another big change is that people are kind of weird about things. Like they're unsure how to proceed in areas that would normally not think twice about. Like for instance, getting on an elevator, okay? Can we all admit it used to be a little awkward, but not bad? Well, now it's completely and totally awkward because no one's sure if like the other person is okay with you getting on the elevator with them. It's, nobody knows. And then when you get in the elevator, there's these little circles on the ground, and we each have to stand in our own little circles so that we're social distancing between floors. My friend found out the hard way this weekend to be sure and stay in her circle because there was an older lady, and the lady literally shoved her arm twice and told her to move into her circle because she was too close to her. Now, in any scenario, in my opinion, this was exceptionally rude and inappropriate. I mean, you just don't shove people, right? For any reason. Now, it's interesting because I was sort of shocked, and my judging human mind wanted to think that, well, she is really rude and probably has always wanted to create her own space by nudging someone away, and now COVID allows her to do it, and everyone just sort of looks the other way. But my open, more objective mind that I've been working on knows that I have to accept and be open to that she's truly fearful. And that's more than likely the reason for her behavior. But does that excuse it really? I mean, are we just going to accept rudeness because someone believes that they have the moral authority to tell you what to do? I don't think we should. Now, this may be an area where you disagree with me, but I think that if you are genuinely that fearful, and I respect that there are those that are, and rightfully so, but if you are that fearful, you probably need to stay home unless you feel it's safe or until you feel it's safe. You see, I may have a little more work to do on that, on that grace thing. But seriously, giving everyone right now a lot of grace, including yourself, is super important. I try to remind myself that every single day. But it is really amazing how varied opinions are across the board. I mean, we met people this weekend who weren't afraid at all and viewed the mask as complete waste of time. And then, of course, we ran into people that had double masks on and clear shields. You know, those big, you look like an alien in it. Now, we also found that there were people that are praying to get the vaccine as soon as possible and others that wouldn't touch it for anything. Now, that I think is going to be interesting how that plays out, because I think we're going to be required to take it to travel abroad. I don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say that we would be. Now, that remains to be seen. So something else that is a new thing is, which is actually kind of funny, it shouldn't be, but it is to me, is the uncomfortableness that we have created surrounding anyone with even a slight cough in public, anything that even resembles a cough. I have to confess that there were a few times this weekend that someone was coughing, and it's kind of comical because you could see the people in their group like looking at them mortified, like you can't cough in public, like you can't. And then looking around to see if everyone else was equally as mortified. And I felt a little guilty because I chuckled to myself. I mean, everyone knows that people are going to drink water and it's going to go down the wrong pipe and they're going to cough, right? That could be a reason why they're coughing. They're not sick. They're trying to breathe. People are also still going to get a tickle in their nose and sneeze. Oh my goodness. I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to die because they're sneezing. Allergies are still a thing. I mean, we still are going to have a common cold, right? So this is another area that I think calls for understanding, humor, and grace because, yeah, it's mortifying. And if you have that problem where you go into a coughing fit, I mean, I've seen people do it and they're just like, oh my gosh, they want to crawl under the table. I mean, they immediately have to get up and leave. Okay, so I'll get off that. But all right, so hotel service is another thing that has changed. I mean, they really took the brunt because, I mean, nobody was traveling. And now when you go, they don't clean your room, but every 3 days. So, and you can request it, and I think they will, but they're not cleaning the room in between overnight. The next morning, you're not getting a clean room. The food service in hotels is pretty much, from my experience, non-existent. They're so short-staffed, they just can't make it happen. And this is another area we have to give a lot of grace. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we've been thanked by restaurant or hotel staff for supporting them. I mean, surely I pray it will get back to normal at some point. And I can tell you this, restaurants have been hit hard. So many of them are struggling to stay open, and many others have closed for good. Side note, if you're traveling, which I do with dietary restrictions, it's not great because options are just not there, especially in hotels. And this has been true no matter where I've traveled during COVID. I mean, that diet restrictions are kind of, you are getting what you get, and usually it's something processed. Travel also for me usually includes either renting a car or taking a ride in Uber. And we generally take Uber, which I love the Uber drivers. They're so fun and usually so nice and talkative. One Atlanta driver told us that a lot of the drivers didn't make it because everything dried up so quickly. Now, Uber Eats picked up, which helped, but the ride sharing where like more than one person, he picks up more than one person, that's gone, and not sure if that will ever be back. Now, we did laugh because he said he didn't like doing it anyway because everyone's so awkward. I pointed out to him, though, that we're already getting in a car with a stranger, and he's letting strangers in his car. So add another stranger to that, and it really gets awkward. So I don't think that's a big loss. And he said he didn't make any money from it anyway, so maybe everyone's glad it's gone. I don't know. So this last week, just because thinking about COVID because we were traveling, I looked back through my thousands of pictures stored on my phone, and I came across the first videos and photos from the original hard lockdown in March. And it just seemed like all those feelings, it seemed like everyone was just going to be brought together because we were all going through this thing with this common enemy. Well, that didn't last very long at all. It seems almost impossible that we're still going through COVID restrictions right now, and even more impossible that it's become a point of political divide. Who would have thought that? I mean, everyone is dealing with things from their own worldview, which includes how they were raised and has a lot to do with what they're reading and how much news they consume. And there is nowhere right now, in my opinion, where you can find objective, fact-based information that's just simply news and doesn't have someone else's opinion tied into it. I have tried, and I would suggest everyone do this, is consider like diversifying what you're taking in. don't just get one side of the story, because you can almost guarantee that you're missing an important piece of information. And part of the problem is we've kind of fallen into listening to one side of the aisle only, so we have biases that we are not even remotely aware of. I realized I do, and I've been actively working on being open to every single thing I hear, instead of immediately shutting it down or not wanting to hear the other side of the reasoning or whatever. I'm trying to take the advice of Wayne Dyer, where he said, when someone tells you something or you hear something that is not one of your beliefs, just stop for a minute and say, that's interesting. I'll have to consider that. I mean, it takes humility to do that, but it also keeps your mind open and available to alternative ideas, which is kind of hard and rare right now. Things are so different, and I am definitely not one of the people this is the new norm. I do not want this to be our new norm. I love people, and I want to feel connected to my local in-person community again. How many of us are missing that? And of course, change is good, and there will be a lot of good that comes out of this. But I want us to be able to go back to not being afraid of each other, of not walking off the sidewalk into the street so you don't come near the person walking towards you. I think you're more likely to get hit by a car. But I also want to get on an elevator and just have the regular awkwardness, not the advanced version we're dealing with right now. I want to go back to concerts and parties and sporting events. I want the energy that comes from groups of people having fun. There isn't much of that right now, but it will come back. And we are all going to appreciate it so much more when it happens, don't you think? Until then, let's all agree to work on loving each other the best that we can. And I want you to know that I love you all. And I'll talk to you this week when I have my 100th episode. And you guys are not going to believe who I have. But I can promise you, you're going to be blown away. I'll see you in a few days. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together. And I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.